Okay, I have a little bit of time, and I want to talk about something that I figured out that a lot of you are, posting charts of patterns, that you are looking to trade, but in a lot of cases, these are not exactly the trades that I took from the basic price action perspective. So I figured out that I will, make a short video about um, what are the trades that I actually take, when it comes to these executions patterns, being a cluster QM and a failed swing, how I trade them and which one I skip. And it's not complicated, it just requires a little bit of a practice basically. So first things first, for this kind of a swing trading um, standpoint, I am looking at a daily and weekly charts. These are not going to be um, in these are basically just important if you are coming to the daily or a weekly level, but then I am kind of sticking with the trading time frame and the execution time frame. This is something that I covered in both bootcamp and blueprint previously. Basically the purpose of this is that you are using two time frames. One is the higher time frame for picking up the levels, and then one is for the execution. For this example, because this is the most recent to me, I will be looking at the H4 and 30-minute chart, but you can obviously change that to the way you trade. I previously I did 30-minute chart and tick charts, so it's completely up to you and what suits you. The idea basically remains the same. There's no difference. So every time that I want to take a trade, I nowadays look at the H4 chart. I don't look at the 30-minute time frame, which is being my execution chart. I only look at that when I actually want to execute a trade. But other than that, I'm looking at the H4 time frame and I'm picking up the levels. For me personally, it's very important when I take a trade that the level has to be clean. It cannot be tested. It has to be basically a fresh level, and this is an example of a clean untested level. This is the USD CAT. I know most of you don't trade it. I didn't took this trade last week, which is kind of my fault. But you have this ongoing trend on H4. First of all, there is this kind of this was a weekly resistance, but we were still kind of shy away from it, and in strong trend like this, there is no really a reason to kind of try to fade it. So you are in this kind of established move. The same one is here. I will talk about both of these basically. This from this bottom, actually this is where I took the trade. I closed it way too soon, but this may be a topic for another video. And as you can see here, basically you have this H4 cluster here, and you have this H4 kind of a QM here as well, and you have also the H4 cluster here, but let's just stick with two of these examples. You can obviously just place your limit order at the top, stop below and kind of hope for the best, but what I found out to be much kind of a smarter things a lot of the times is to look inside this kind of a structure, especially if you have time for it. Like I said, previously I'm in the middle of moving, so I don't have time every day, but when I can, I actually do this. So if I go to the 30-minute chart, you can see in both of these cases that you have kind of this more detailed structure inside, okay? And if you take a look at this down here at the bottom, basically this is your untested level, okay? This kind of a 30-minute cluster before the move up, okay? Obviously if market would move away from it and go back and test it before this kind of a leg up, this wouldn't have been a untested level. Therefore, I would not be bidding here, and I would be actually waiting for a kind of a move lower, you know, to probe it as well. The same thing is basically here, you know, this is kind of your QM here on the 30-minute chart. You know, it wasn't tested before, so market just goes there and gives a very nice reaction coming from that. If we're gonna take a look at something like Bitcoin, you know, funnily enough, this was a trade that I took and I got stopped out, but it's a good example nonetheless. You know, it was a this last week basically kind of a third drive here. You have this H4 QM level in here, so you're gonna mark it out like this. But if you're gonna take a look inside the structure on the 30-minute time frame, you will see that there is nothing untested. You know, everything in here, you know, we moved up, we tested the level here, we moved up again, tested it here, we moved up again, tested it here. The idea behind this is that there is simply no kind of a fresh supply and, you know, demand in this case inside this structure. You know, every level that you took was previously tested basically. So from the kind of a simplified perspective, it's the same thing as buying a support from the same site. You know, if you, it's just kind of a, like I said, it's not a fresh level, it's not something that is kind of worth taking, because the buying or selling inside the level will be actually much weaker than taking the trade which wasn't taking a kind of trading at the area which wasn't tested before. If you take a look at BTC now, you know, this is kind of a horrible price action because everything gets immediately tested. You know, if you compare the H4 chart on Bitcoin, you know, which this impulse to the downside was one of the fairly rare occasions to where we had this kind of untested structure. You know, we had some here, and you can see how market bounced from there very quickly because there was nothing tested inside this. Once again, we hit this cluster on H4, you know, right here, strong sell-off because nothing was kind of tested inside here. You can see this even on a H4 most of the times where you don't actually have any wicks. You know, this was kind of an exception to that. But I hope this kind of drives my point very clearly. You know, if I take a look at crude oil on a trade from last week, once again, you know, this was one of those cases where it didn't really happen the way that I wanted. So this is one of the things you need to understand, because obviously there was this H4 cluster. If I would just go by here, you know, with the stop under the level, you know, I would get away with it. But there is this kind of a strong compression coming from the level. You know, we had this push, and this section right here, this kind of a thin kind of this one-sided 30-minute chart is basically what you want to look at. I know this is often, you know, nowadays called the fair value gap, you know, from ICT or whatever, but that's just another kind of a rebranded name. You know, it's basically a single print. You know, it's just a low liquid move at the level where, you know, buyers or sellers clearly kind of stepped in. You don't need to overcomplicate that. You know, you don't need to put any kind of a exotic names to that, because it's just simply a area where really a demand or supply stepped in. So if you obviously will go to this, you know, you will find out that sometimes you will miss a trade, but as you can see with this oil example, you know, we tested the H4 cluster, made a V reversal, and then we had this thin price action again, and you have this small 30-minute cluster below it, which we basically perfectly tested. And went higher from there. In these cases, it kind of depends on you where you're gonna place your stop loss. With kind of this more aggressive approach, you would go below the low. If you want more safety, you will go below this low here as well. Basically below this low. That's kind of up to you. You should track these. How much kind of risk averse are you for the trades like these, where I am expecting to be in position for a couple of days. I like to give trades a little bit of room. Obviously this would make quite a difference in terms of risk reward on a trade. I got out here on Friday on my trailing stop, but still, the probability that we would just kind of spike through this, it still can happen. So definitely something you need to decide for yourself. Once again, we move from here. You have this cluster here. This is kind of a thin price coming from the level. This is what I perceive to be a untested level where I would take a trade for continuation. Okay. Is there some other example to mention? This is not really a... Let me quickly take a look. But I think this is fairly straightforward. You will just look inside your 30-minute levels. Sorry, H4 levels. This is for QM and the clusters, because for these two you are using a limit orders for the felt swings. Let me actually talk about how I do trade those. This is a good example. I didn't get filled today. I tried to get short on a Brent oil in the morning, but price just nuked basically from the kind of open. But you can see on H4 you have a failed swing in here. Okay, we took out the high, on Friday, sold off from there. So what I did, I went to the 30-minute time frame. At the time where I was looking at it in the morning, market was actually trading here. And you can once again very clearly see that you have this 30-minute kind of a drive away from the level, which leaves this kind of a gap here, and on top of that you have very clean cluster area basically. So this is kind of a no-brainer for me in terms of where I actually want to get into the trade, which will be the limit order at this low, stop above the high. If you are once again aggressive, you will go with a stop above this high. That's really up to you. I know some of you actually asked me what I do when I don't get filled. My target for this trade was filling up this structure here, taking out these lows basically. We kind of did that today. Okay, not completely, but we tested this level of support. I think we will make one more move lower, but you can see my actual alert here as well. So basically, if I set up the limit order and the market won't fill me, and it will hit my target, I am canceling that. Okay, and I'm waiting for a kind of a new structure to form. So this is where I cancel my resting orders. Like I said, for QM and for H4 QMs and H4 clusters, it's fairly straightforward, because obviously these levels are below or above the market, so you just kind of see them fairly in advance. The can see here, on USD CAD example, if you take a look on H4, you have basically, this is, you have 2 days to prepare yourself, for a trade. Once market leaves that, once I would see this type of candle coming from this consolidation, closing above the high, then we try to sell off there, and then we made just another very bullish candle. This is definitely sign of strength for me. I know I want to be buyer here. Funnily enough, I wasn't, but yeah, this is definitely a level of interest. And then I just go to the 30-minute chart, see there is this QM level. I'm just setting my limit order here and, you know, leave the trade to be. But once again, my target for this, if I go to the weekly time frame, because we were just kind of a shy below this weekly high, and there is this weekly double top. Okay, so although we taken this high and sold off, you know, still there is definitely clean level of resistance. In a strong trend like this, I would expect this to happen. So I was definitely not I haven't seen this to be, you know, completely done. If I mark out this high, this one, if I move this a little bit, you know, this one as well. This is something that kind of often happens. Market will just kind of stop before these weekly levels of support and resistance pulls back. You know, everyone starts thinking it's over, but then it will finish the move back again to these highs. So this would have been my first target, you know, as we are sitting here. Obviously, if we would just straight push to it, and I would be sitting in the limit order here, I'm canceling it. But how this kind of played out, you know, this is very solid setup on USD CAD. But like I said, you know, you are sitting with the limit order way in advance, basically. So the second type of the execution is obviously on a on this example on a Brent crude oil. Okay, this is you are taking a H4 failed swing trade, basically. You know, you are not you are kind of required to watch this more closely in real time, although it's a 4-hour time frame, so you have still plenty of time. You know, there's nothing like you are trading 1 minute chart where you really have to be tied in, but you know, this still gives you plenty of time to make decisions. These failed swings are more complicated, definitely, you know, because you know, you are not giving this kind of a time and space to the market. You know, if you are trading some very nice rounded retest towards any kind of cluster or QM, that's, you know, you are just one and done. But with these failed swings, you know, I very often, or I used to take a lot of losses on these because I was just kind of a rushing into the trade. You know, I had this daily high or daily low basically marked out, you know, somewhere on the chart, and market taken the low on a daily time frame, you know, and the first 30-minute candle that closed, you know, above it, I just blindly kind of entered the trade. You know, oftentimes I got taken out before the move happened. And what I kind of found out is, if you will take a look at the relative volume, you know, the indicator that I have here in the template, well, let me actually show you this. You know, on an ES here as well, you know, today we took out this yearly low on a weekly chart. The pickup on the relative volume will almost always be there. Let's take a look at the gold. Actually, gold is a good example of this, because we had this massive sell-off, but at the first kind of glimpse, this really looked fairly bullish. You can see that you are taking the last week's low, and once this will load, you will see how the high relative volume inside the candle, basically. You can see, you know, here at the candle close, you know, you might want to really get the idea to just jump into the long. But you know, so with these things you need to be a little more cautious. There is a possibility for this. I didn't take a trade on a gold solely because you can see that we took out these lows. We are inside this cluster on a daily. Let me actually talk about this, because this is a good kind of a setup that I will actually avoid. I have on both these time frames I have a daily chart for some reason. Never mind. Thursday we took out the low, you know, inside the daily cluster, and look at the Friday candle. You know, like I said, you know, these kind of fair value gaps, whatever, we filled this little bit and had this kind of a huge rejection. So first things first, you know, if I take a look at the H4 chart right here, you can see that there is this basically the cluster is in here, you know, this is the down move. Before we rallied higher, we technically may even broke the structure, so this definitely looks solid, but the first kind of a sign of being more cautious with this one, besides, you know, obviously the very ugly daily candle, is the fact that we tested it here. Okay, on a H4 you can clearly see the wicks, the wick on this candle, you know, coming inside the structure. So for me this is automatically not the 100% a clean level. If I'm gonna go take a look at the 30-minute chart, you will see that you have actually the untested structure here. This is kind of up to you if you would decide to take a trade or not. Like I said, you know, after hard rejection like this on a daily, I was really hesitant to do it. But to be completely fair, you know, if you would set up the limit order here, you can see that it was a small reaction, and you know, you would get eventually stopped out. So this was a tricky one. Like I said, you know, the daily wasn't really the best sign for this as well. And also, if you are going to mark out this kind of a cluster here on the daily, which we, you know, tested here for the first time, and then you will take a look on H4 again and zoom out a little bit. This is once again the thing that, you know, you have a daily cluster, but you want to be zooming in a little bit to see where is actually the best kind of area to enter. And as you can see, for this case, the kind of a real, oh my, okay, the real consolidation is happening here on this complete downside. Okay, so if you would buy this here solely based on a daily chart, you know, you need to use a wide stop loss basically below the low. If you will zoom in, you know, only on the H4 you will see that this is kind of a area of consolidation before we made this rally up. So this is where you should actually be more interested in, rather than buying here at the top. Once again, then you can go to the 30-minute chart and just kind of look at if there is anything untested on 30 minutes which you can buy blindly. Let me actually take a look, but my computer is like burning. I don't know what is the issue. Okay, if I going to adjust this on a H4, I don't think there is anything untested here, just solely based on this, because you can see there was this wick to the downside. But let me actually check. This is so slow. I don't know if anyone has any kind of tips on why my MacBook, which has the Intel 9 processor and it was really it's supposed to be really good, is doing this every time I try to, you know, record a video. Just let me know. I would be very happy for any type of insights on that. But once this thing actually starts to behave, okay, almost there. Really sorry for that. Sometimes it just works fine, and sometimes it just does this. So annoying. But to be fair, I wouldn't do this, you know. If the level is so far like this, I wouldn't scroll all the way back. I don't think I would do that. I would just wait for a test and see if we can actually form any kind of a, once again, you know, 30-minute QM, 30-minute cluster. Basically see the impulse from the level and wait if there is anything kind of inside that. Jesus. Okay, so I feel like I'm about to give up on this very soon, but we should be almost there. Okay, it's gonna be here. Yeah, so, but you can see on a 30-minute chart, I hope you can see that. But once again, this is not something that I would just go and buy blindly. You have this 30-minute cluster here where we seem like we found a bottom for today, but this double bottom below it would turn me off. from buying this level blindly. Okay, so once again, you know, the structure wasn't there, so I would be just kind of sitting here and waiting how price would kind of develop from here. You know, so far this is nothing to me to buy. You know, we would actually have to reclaim all the way up here, because obviously this is your kind of a high that made a low, so nothing here. But if we make one more spike lower, then obviously this would be high that made a low, and then you can start working again. Okay, so this is it for the video. Like I said, you know, you really want to see this kind of a impulsive moves where one side is clearly kind of taking stepping in. You know, if you take a look at Bitcoin, it's terrible chart. You know, there is nothing for me to be extremely clean. But even yesterday on ETH, BTC, you know, as you can see, basically, I think this should be a good example. And I'm not trading during the weekend, so this is not a trade that I took. You have this daily SR, you know, once again, you have this kind of a thin price here on a daily, you know, previous resistance can act as a support. Not the best level in the world, but, you know, for a small bounce, whatever. You're gonna come here, you know, huge relative selling, volume, you're gonna push away from it. Once you make this move, the kind of this untested, you know, this kind of a initiative buying here with which left this little bit of a price gap, gets filled here, and price, you know, pushes from here. You know, this wick basically filled this, you know, took out the low here and filled this kind of a structure inside here. If you would decide to buy a retest, this is actually a pretty solid level, because, you know, you had this mini stop run on 30-minute chart, so you should be pretty safe putting your stop basically below the low, you know. And even if you are not, you know, you'll just put it below the low right here. But there is nothing, you know, if you're gonna go bid here, you know, there is nothing really which is untested inside this kind of a structure on a 30-minute. But if you take a look at BTC, which will take a second to load again, you can see that this thing here wasn't really filled. You know, there was not this kind of a stop run which we could see on ETH. You know, market just moved higher, made these kind of a lows here, really, you know, this low which got taken on ETH didn't get taken on BTC, and so you have this cluster at the bottom, still a little bit room to fill it. Market is not respecting the level the same way ETH did. It goes down, takes out the low, fills this level, and moves up from there. Okay, so this is kind of a, I would say, good example of these kind of a clean levels, and, you know, levels that were already tested, so they're not need to be tested again in some cases, you know, because obviously if you go long BTC here, you know, you have this kind of a compression of the lows. You know, this is something that I think I talked about a lot in a bootcamp, you know, where you kind of want to, you know, what structure is good and what structure is not. You know, buying here Bitcoin, you know, you have these kind of lows here, but if you buy ETH at the same place, you know, you are having this stop run. This is terrible. I need to figure something out with the PC. Okay, so you have this kind of a stop run, and, you know, price respects the level much better. Okay, something that I'm watching right now is ES, actually, to see if we can buy, if we can go long, or if we're gonna catch a little bit of a bid, because obviously everyone is doom posting now. But this is the example of the failed swing. You know, you have the low of the year, which was made in February. Today we tested it, we closed god damn it, we closed as a failed swing on H4, whether this decides to load. But this is not really enough for me. You know, I go to the 30-minute chart after that. You know, like buying these kind of SFP candles or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's never been kind of my thing that I like to do. You know, I always was much bigger fan to see if we can actually move form the QM on the lower time frames. Obviously, sometimes you will miss it, but it's I don't know. It's really this kind of a thing that I just prefer to give things a little more space. Obviously, all these candles are a higher relative volume, which you will see every time on ES and NQ because you have the ETH and RTH sessions. But you can see, you know, I was like, okay, we should reclaim the Friday high if the bid is clearly there. You know, we took out the Friday high and we are selling off. So once again, more conservative approach. In some cases, you will find this to be a better thing to do. Obviously, what would be the issue then is if we just kind of testing back this kind of a candle that made a low, and if we would rally higher from here, you know, because obviously that would be a huge issue, and I would basically have to give up on the trade, because if this candle actually pushes all the way back up, then you will have this huge wick which tested the structure. You will have the huge wick here that tested the structure, and I don't have any clean level to go and buy. So that's definitely the thing that can happen. It happened to me in the past, but you know, it is once again what it is. You will, if you start looking at these things, you'll find out that really looking at these levels which were never tested before, it's much better thing to do. And you know, if this will just rally from here, then I would just kind of try to look at another opportunity to get in, but that's kind of what it is. Okay, so thanks for the attention. I hope this makes sense. Like I said, you know, if you have questions, feel free to ask me in a Discord. But the point being, you know, really try to look at these clean, untested, you know, levels when you are taking your trades, because market will, if the level is messy on lower time frames, you know, if it was tested before, market is much more likely to squeeze it rather than just kind of respect something that was already tested. Okay.